Welcome. I'm Elisabeth Dawson, and Ways to Love Your Money. Here we are again. So, I have a guest with us today, and we are social distancing, so we are a little far apart. But Katie Steck, who is with me each and every day in the practice here, she's our case manager, and she kind of preps and plans, and she's the glue to our client relationships. And it's been awesome having her here with me now. What, 3 years, 4 years?
Three and a half, yeah.
3.5, almost
Yeah.
4 years. So
Time flies.
It does. It does. Especially when you're having fun and when you're really busy. Because we're changing people's lives every day, right? So it's great to have you on the show with me. I know we've talked about this for a little while.
Yeah,
so
good to be here.
Yeah. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that we had a special show last week. It was really a filming and a webinar, a Zoom call, if you will, with quite a few people on it, and it was about the Paycheck Protection Program. So it got quite a lot of attention, and Katie was part of our moderation there.
Yeah, it was great to have so much feedback from everybody who was on. It was actually a really fun hour.
Yeah, it went by really quick, right?
Yeah.
It went by quick.
Yeah.
And our expert for the show that we did, or for the event that we did, was Tom Welch, and he's with Neighborhood National Bank, and he works with SBA finances and also with these paycheck protection programs as well as commercial loans. So Tom is a very credible expert in this world, and he's helped us personally and professionally, and we were just glad to have him part of the show, right?
Yeah,
part of the event.
And Tammy too.
And
he had
Tammy
his coworker Tammy with him, who has a wealth of knowledge as well. So
and Tammy's quite a kick. You know, she's a lot of fun to be around, and but she's quick with information. She knows her stats. She knows everything that's involved there.
We're going to jump over to a clip of the webinar so you can see what we're talking about.
Thank you so much for being on the fireside chat today, Mr. Tom Welch.
Well, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you here tonight. I thought I would go over a couple of things about changes that have occurred in the last couple of days, and then Elisabeth and I can kind of step through the questions. I have been in banking for 40 years. I just finished my 40th year in December, and I have been doing SBA lending for about 30 years. And it's something that I love, and it's very dear to my heart, and I'm very happy to be able to help people so their businesses can thrive and their families can live and enjoy life. So this PPP thing has been quite a challenge for all of us because it continues to change every day. I have a binder that's literally 3 inches thick of things that I've had to read and keep on top of, and I hate to tell any of you anything specifically through this whole process because it just kept changing. I think we're getting to the finalized part for the forgiveness, so that's why I'm kind of we're getting ready to roll our forgiveness out at our bank. One thing I would say is don't rush to have to do the forgiveness. You have 8 weeks from the date your loan was dispersed, or now under the new rules, you have up to 24 weeks. So you will have to decide whether you want 8 weeks or 24 weeks. So as long as your loan closed before June the 5th, you have that option. If you closed on or if your loan was approved after on June the 5th or after, you only have 24 weeks. And I think it's better to kind of wait before you do it because we don't know if there's going to be more changes still, and you have plenty of time before this is all, before you're required to even do the forgiveness. So the first thing that transpired is any loan that was made on June 5th or after, the maturity dates of those loans have been extended out to 5 years. So most people's loans, the maturity date is 2 years. The new ones are 5. You can ask for, by mutual agreement, you can ask the bank to extend it. I can tell you at our bank, we are not going to be able to offer that because these loans only are at 1% and they don't even cover our costs to have them. So we're very highly encouraged that everybody's going to get their loan forgiven and they're not going to have to really use the loan feature of it. You may know too that the breakdown has changed. So when we started, it was 75% for payroll, 25% for non-payroll expenses. Now that's been changed, and now you can have 60% for payroll and 40% for non-payroll expenses. What I will tell you is please, 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 you have to have at least 60% for the payroll. If you don't meet that threshold, that portion that's below 60% will not get forgiven. So it's important that you focus on the payroll portion first and then go over to the non-payroll part. The PPP loan does expire program. It expires on June 30th. So the SBA is closing the program out. As of last week, there was still $128 billion left in the program to be used. I'm sure those funds will be deployed some other way. But I do want to mention too that the economic disaster recovery loan, if you did not receive one of those, and I told you that the funds were all had been exhausted, they have been renewed, and the SBA opened that program back up again late last week. So if you didn't get one, those loans did not come from the bank. They actually came directly from the SBA. So you have to go to their website.
And Tom, I know we were talking earlier today and you said that there's some coordination with the EIDL loan with the PPP program, but it's a coordination of simplicity. So when we're talking about the 60% for payroll purposes for the PPP loan, do you want to go over some of those requirements? Because we've had many questions from people that have sent them in. You know, what kind of retirement program qualifies as paycheck protection, 60% of payroll? What are some of those parameters that people need to have organized that they can use?
Well, I mean, you know, you submitted an application that had your payroll expenses. Most people had payroll companies that did their payroll reports for them. So obviously anybody that was on salary, if you're on commission, you know, their retirement, if you're paying, you know, contributing towards your employees' retirement account, that counted. Their portion does not count, of course, but the portion that the employer participated in, and some of the taxes. The federal taxes did not use those to qualify. And then, you know, the non-payroll expenses is your rent, your interest payments on any loans that you had. If you have a lease, the lease also qualifies under the rent portion of that. And as well as, what did I forget here? There's one other item that counts. Oh, the health benefits as well too. Yeah.
Right.
So what did you get out of the Paycheck Protection Program, that event that we did?
I thought the most important, since we were talking about the forgiveness side of things, was how it's not, there's no rush. I feel like was what I learned from that we've got plenty of time to get everybody's financials in order.
And not everyone knows, but our firm is a recipient of a Paycheck Protection Program loan, and we were grateful to have it, and it was amazing. But in the beginning, there was this huge rush to say, okay, you've got 8 weeks to spend it, and you've got 8 weeks to file your application for forgiveness. But now there's been an amendment to the CARES Act, and they said technically we have until the end of the year. So that takes a lot of pressure off of me, but also our business owner clients and other people that we know that own businesses that have these loans, because the appeal was having a loan forgiven, which is not very often that you hear those things.
And I think a lot of people were in such a rush to get that process done.
Yeah.
And so learning that, we have till even October of 2021,
Yes.
I think gave a lot of people a lot of relief.
Well, I think that that's something that people should know. That's kind of a number that should be thrown out there, you know, a date that should be put out there, you know, save the date. Maybe don't wait until the last part, but what Tom was telling us is wait a little bit, don't be in a rush, because there's so many guidelines that are coming out each and every day that are going to be, you know, putting us in the right direction, where a lot of people, if they've already filed for forgiveness, they may not have all of the other pieces that might come to fruition throughout this.
Yeah, they might miss some opportunities.
Right, they might miss some opportunities. Yeah. And really, when I talked to Tom, even on a side note, he goes, I really feel like the government's going to fully pay it off, but they don't know.
Right,
you know, we don't know. And I think there's a stress around that. At this point, and I kind of shared this feedback when we were on the webinar the other night, was that for me initially it was kind of a hard thing as a business owner to get a loan to pay payroll, right? And at first you had to spend 75% towards payroll. And there's a lot of different designations of payroll and what they are. It's not just your payroll. It's multiple things with retirement plans that you have for employees and whatnot. But it was a little difficult. But to get through these very difficult times, these trying times, and especially this last weekend, we're hearing these coronavirus numbers are even, peaking again. They're getting higher. Deaths are down, which is great. We hope that they stay down. But what about the businesses that need more money eventually?
Right.
What are they going to be able to do? Because I know that there's a significant date, June 30th, that you can't go and get a Paycheck Protection Program loan after the 30th.
Right.
So what's to come next? It's a very unknown situation that we're in. What would you say from some of our business owner clients, what their concerns are? Have you picked up anything like?
I think a lot of people had a lot of questions about what was considered payroll. They knew it's not just that paycheck that their employee is getting, but there is actually a lot of other pieces to what is considered payroll.
Right.
So I think that was a big.
Well, health insurance or dental insurance, something like that. Some benefits that maybe you're offering your employees.
Retirement benefit contributions.
Benefits, the retirement accounts. We have a pension in our practice, so even being able to fund a portion of that was great. But then they had said that we could basically stretch out the period of time, not just to 8 weeks, something like 24 weeks.
Yeah, that's what Tom said, 24 weeks.
So if we could stretch out, we have a lot of expenses within 24 weeks versus just 8. So even to categorize all those pieces, but what I would suggest is do your homework for sure, because even though you may have had a banker or someone helping you get the Paycheck Protection Program, or if you went directly to the SBA, there's not many resources right now that can tell you how to do the application correct. So that application, once it actually gets put back in, you can't go and fix it.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of like there's a lot of mistakes on the road to get into the Paycheck Protection Program or the Economic Impact Disaster Loan, and people made mistakes, and I'll say we did too, because we just didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know. And where it might have, hurt us from not getting more money, or maybe it got us far less. So it's just kind of interesting, because we've seen the gamut amongst a lot of different business owners of how much they receive from the EIDL, how much they receive from the SBA, or they didn't get anything from the SBA for the PPP.
Right.
And these are a lot of different little acronyms, but it's trying to kind of navigate through with our clients and their questions, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what would you suggest to people listening right now? Because you're not always behind the scenes. You're up front and center with me right now. So.
Well, I think one thing people were asking, and is probably a good first step, is if you do have questions about what you can use, that they're all on that application. So even just taking a glance at it to see what that list of things you need to keep track of is a good place to start. And then, Tom was helping his clients by putting together a form, I guess you could say, to help with that process. So reaching out to the loan officer, Tom, or whoever that is.
And we're trying to get everybody, 100% forgiven. So the way that the process will, do you mind, I'll since a lot of people, are from maybe, part of my clients are here online too, I'll explain how we're going to do it. And then, it will be similar, for everybody else. We are going to use a forgiveness portal where you'll actually be able to, we will create a link, and we're going to send all of our customers a link to this portal, and it will have populated a majority of your information from when you actually applied for the original loan. And it's going to ask you some questions, because you're going to have to decide once again on this application whether you're going to do the 8-week forgiveness or the 24-week forgiveness. So by answering some of these questions, it will determine which form you're going to have to fill out too. Because now there's 2 applications. There is an easy form, and then there's just the general application for the loan. The easy form, it has like 3 questions that you'll have to answer in order to be eligible. So anybody who is self-employed or an independent contractor, or you're a sole proprietor and you didn't have any employees, you're eligible to use the easy form. And the easy form is only 3 pages long. If you did not reduce the annual salaries or the hourly wages of an employee by more than 25% during the covered period, then you're going to be eligible to use the easy form. And then this one is a little bit more tricky. If you did not reduce the salaries by more than 25% or your hourly wages, and you were unable to operate during the covered period. So like if you were, restricted from having your business open, because one of the federal agencies had said you have to close, you're not an essential business, then you will qualify under this to actually use the easy
form.
Mhm.
So less documentation with the easy form, but you have to qualify under those requirements.
Yeah, you have to be able, on the actual application, there's instructions, and you have to be able to check one of those boxes
Okay.
before you can move forward on it.
Well, and I know people are going to have more and more questions about their unique situation, so we'll take those questions if we have enough time at the end. But if not, we can always do a one-off and create appointments with you or myself, Tom, and we can try and help people out. Because one of the questions from Ryan and Jennifer Ogden had said, do you have a forgiveness app ready yet? Well, it sounds like it's coming, at least through Neighborhood National Bank, but I do know that they also have applications on SBA as well. So, but I do like the idea, Tom, that you're saying maybe wait a little bit before you jump the gun to actually do your forgiveness application, because so many rules are changing every day.
And you're not required. It's just the way the law was written. It said that, I mean, technically you could apply before you used all of your money. That wouldn't be very smart, but you could. You can apply. You can apply right after the 8-week period, or you've got a long period of time, before you have to just jump on it. So I'm going to recommend to my clients to wait. The applications are available. The reason why we haven't released anything, because our system's going to complete the forms for you. So you're going to answer the questions, and it's automatically going to populate the form. And then when you're done, it's going to submit it to us. And what happens is the bank, we have 60 days to review your application and either approve it or decline it.
Okay.
And then from that point, let's say that we approve it, then we send it to the SBA, and the SBA has 90 days to review it.
Okay.
The reason why, this is the second reason why we haven't released everything out yet, is that SBA has not provided us with the guidance of how they want us to send your information to them. So even if you send everything and we approve it, it's going to be sitting in a box, and I don't want it just sitting there going nowhere. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, when you and I talked about this earlier, you said that the SBA only has about 800 employees, and for the Paycheck Protection Program, they actually took in over 5 million applications. Is that right?
Yeah. So, but there were a lot of banks that participated,
Right.
in the
Without
program,
the banks, we couldn't have done this.
No.
Do we think that the banks might just have the approval, power at that point, because there's not enough people in the SBA to actually go through and fine comb it?
No, they're not going to do that. Yeah.
So we have to have our patience hat on with this process, a minimum of 5 months.
A minimum of 5 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And and it could be longer. And I think that's where the deferral part comes in too. If I remember right, they're saying that they're going to, originally the way it was written, you would have had to start making interest payments in the 7th month. But now the payments aren't due until they actually approve or decline your request. So, and they're going to pay all of your interest.
Are you saying that if your application's in process, then you're not going to have to pay the payment until they're approved?
Yeah, you're not going to be paying the payment.
Well,
that's how I
good to know.
understand it. Yeah.
That's good to know. I think that's actually a big plus, because what do you know? What do you even know what you're making a payment on?
Yeah, we don't know what the amount is. I mean, the bank is going to determine whether it's going to get all forgiven, or a portion may not get forgiven, or or it's totally declined. And I was telling you earlier today, Tammy and I've had some crazy questions about people asking us, can I go out and buy a gas station? Can I pay down high interest loans? Even with the PPP funds, and we're like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
So, because this was supposed to help, keep people employed and be able to keep the doors open.
One thing that Tom gave us too is a resource to 4 different documents. 2 are applications. So one is the long form and the other one is the easy form. And then there's actually 2 other forms that he gave us as well that explain what the easy form is if you can qualify for that. Then you don't really have to go through all the documentation that other businesses have to go through. If you can go through that, it's fantastic. But if you can't, then it's the long form, which is fine. Just have your documentation. It's kind of like getting ready to go back and do taxes. You want to make sure you have all of your deductions and all of your documentation all set up, so that when you go through that process, it's easy. It's not without a question. you never know. The government, they have the task force for the Paycheck Protection Program to see who's gotten money and what they've used it for. And oh my gosh, I don't want to be one of those people that they come back and say, well, what did you really use it for? Well, I used it for this, but I still had a whole lot of this to pay for. So one of the recommendations all along was to have that money in a separate bank account. Some people did, some people didn't. So you just have to be able to track what your expenses have been over that period of time.
Yeah,
for sure.
keep those statements and every check that you wrote.
Right. And there were questions, and I recall these too, about if your payroll had gone down by 25%, or if you had employees and they didn't come back, or if you had part-time employees that basically if they were each worked 20 hours a pay period, you have to consider them one employee. And if you haven't brought those people back, what are the ramifications? I think at the end of the day that we were grateful for the gift. There's probably going to be some little things that might not be forgiven, but oh well. But the majority of these loans are going to probably be forgiven.
One thing that I did learn today too, when I was kind of reviewing all these big changes, let's say that you did cut your salary of an employee. So just for an example, let's say that they made $1,000 a week. You cut their salary by $300. So during that 8-week period, they would have had like about what will be eligible. They're still going to let you keep 25% of the salary that they would have made, and you won't be penalized for that.
Okay.
So you're only going to, so like if you cut their salary by $300, you're only going to be penalized by $50 a week for what you cut.
And I read something today too about full-time employees versus part-time employees. So there's a different treatment for those as well. Do you know much about that, Tom?
You have to be able to, someone has to be working 30 hours or more to be counted as full-time.
Okay.
And then if you had 2 part-times and they were working 20 hours a week, then you would add them together to get a full-time equivalent.
I'm sure you all have questions about this. There's going to be a lot, and if you need some resources to help you, or even just other commercial business loans and things of that nature, we'll be happy to put you in touch with Tom. And just know this, when you're working with me, you're working with Katie, but you're also working with our entire team. So you want someone that's going to be able to take good care of you and have a good succession plan in the future too. Let's pray that this time will pass, which we all know it will. But let's hope and pray that less and less people will get this coronavirus, that we'll have a vaccine, that businesses will be able to come back and thrive.
Right.
Not just survive, but come back and thrive for sure. And, just enjoy what we have in this wonderful country.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Anything else you want to say in closing comments?
I think that there were some really great clips that we wanted to share with you, so we'll definitely be highlighting those as well. There's some great information in that webinar, and if you haven't had a chance to hear the whole thing, we also have the recording. So
perfect. Yes. Get the recording, because we have had a ton of people excited about it. And Tom has said that he wants to do another fireside chat on the 15th of July. So wait for those invitations, or if you're interested, put that information in the comments. We'll make sure you get a link to that event, and ask all the questions, because I can only imagine how many more things will change between now and the 15th of July. So, hey, great to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
It's nice not being lonely here. It's kind of nice to have my cohort here, but we are trying to social distance and do the right thing. We want to keep everybody healthy out there, so stay healthy, stay safe, stay smart, and enjoy your future. Let's get back to a thriving economy. That's what we all want to have. All right. Stay tuned next week. We'll have another Ways to Love Your Money back in the studio. The information provided in this show is for informational and educational purposes only. This show is not investment advice, nor is it intended to address the financial needs of any particular viewer. The opinions expressed on this show are not intended to be an endorsement of any particular investment strategy or service of any other kind. You must make an independent decision regarding investments or strategies mentioned throughout the show. Before acting on information in this show, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular situation and strongly consider seeking advice from a financial advisor.